Uh,
Cool.
okay, hi Tony, it's Patrick. We're here for another demo hour. I'm not sure exactly what you're gonna show us, but do you want to explain what we'll be doing today?
Well, I actually have a pull request open for this one over on
Sweet.
Notebooks for All that kind of talks about some things that we could be doing. Um, so
Do you want me to open
let's
it up?
see. If you want to, it's the only pull request that we have there.
New tab dash Google Chrome.
Um,
To mail.com. Select
so
text. slash unselected.
you
GitHub.com slash
know,
Smyth selected. Smyth
cool to
new Smyth scroll
see
dash style
how you
organization.
use GitHub.
SPHRI dash
I
curriculum.
mean, I
Um,
still
Achievement.
mostly just use the mouse because I don't know, it takes forever to navigate
Block
around.
format organizations.
But I
Digit
use
PHRI dash
the
curriculum.
I've
Outer dash
memorized
scroll.
the GitHub
Main landmark
shortcuts so
outer
they're
dash scroll
easy.
link visited. Outer middle dot
All right. So here's IOTA school. And we want
find it.
repositories.
Result 1 of 4. No results.
Oh no, yeah, we want repositories. That's it there.
Zapata outer is an organization focused
it's
on
right
technical
there.
teaching,
It's the
accessibility,
first
and info.
link
Outer middle dot
underneath of initiatives. Oh,
And
great. Or it's the
then
first link
find
right
it.
there. Yeah.
Result
Oh,
1
we
of
don't
4.
have
kind
a
of
description.
I
Middle
We
kind of
should probably
cheat and
get one of
use
those.
control. If you that's kind of a cool feature that if you do a control F on Chrome and you hold down Alt and hit Enter, it'll like select that whatever text, so you can kind of do things quickly that
Oh,
way.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then here we'll do the pull
Mainland.
request. I think the GitHub you can pass the
Pass
GitHub.
next key through. Pass next key through.
Does that work? No.
Pass next key through.
I don't actually know what they implement there. They look like they're tabs.
There's
There you
this.
go.
Okay. I had to turn off NVDA to do it. All right, and
Oh,
then
can you hold down the
OBS.
NVDA
Pull
modifier
requests middle.
key and use those hotkeys, or
I
do you
was
have
trying
to
to
turn
use
off NVIDIA?
pass next key through. So, and in theory,
Uh,
that should let you, because then NVDA catches a lot of stuff. So you can. There's an option here if you press NVDA F2.
Pass next key through.
Then it's supposed to pass the next three keys straight through to the application without NVDA trying to pick it up or whatever. But for whatever reason, it wasn't working. So I just turned
Interesting.
NVDA off and turned it on again. All right, so navigate down to
Did
this.
you ever
Outer
use
landmark code things.
JAWS? Was that part of your
I know,
work?
I have an open case now with my, Commission for the Blind, but that they're supposed to be giving me a JAWS license, but I've never actually had a JAWS license. I've always been NVDA. I kind of like how hackable NVDA is, but JAWS is supposed to be better for certain things, especially like Office applications. So, and also for testing, I kind of want a license. So,
Right, right.
they're a great org, but it takes a little while to get it. Like I think it was like 6 months ago or something. I put that request in, but we'll see.
Global navigation. Solutions button.
Well,
Open source
hopefully you
button.
hear about that.
Pricing link.
Yeah,
Search or jump to
probably
button.
soon.
Sign in link.
All right, sign in.
Sign up link. Main landmark outer dash tool visited link. Notebooks dash format. List with free link. You must be signed into Star repository link. Repository navigation. Issues 21 link. Pull requests 1 with actions link. Projects link. Security link. Insights link. Search landmark. Issue
Wow,
navigation. Milestones 0
There's
link.
a lot of
that's a
different.
lot of
Request link. 1
tabs.
open link.
That's a lot of
44
tabs,
closed
isn't
link.
it?
Author menu button collapse.
Holy
Label menu
shit.
button
Getting
collapse.
there.
Projects menu
See, this
button
could be a
collapse. Milestones menu button
toolbar
collapse. Reviews menu button
with
collapse.
or
Assigning menu button
menu or
collapse. Sub-menu
something.
I
assigning.
mean, probably I could
You,
have done landmarks.
Sort menu button collapse. Issues group in less field set. More
what
details.
I
landmarks did
finally
they give
found
you?
it. So yeah, okay, let's see what landmarks they
Search
have.
landmark issue navigation landmark labels 13 link.
Issue navigation,
Issues search landmark search all issues edited
issue
colon
search,
blank colon
search all
open.
issues,
Repository navigation landmark list with 7 items
repository
code visited link.
navigation, and it's probably that toolbar.
Link issues. Link 21.
Yep.
Visited link current page pull requests.
Pull request, yeah. So that repository navigation lets you navigate between the different tabs in the repository, like the code, the issues, pull requests, and then the
Outer dash tool visited link slash.
and this says IOTA school. That might be then like the repository
Visited
name.
link notebooks public.
Yep.
Yeah, and then
Banner landmark global
this
navigation
is the
landmark list
banner
with
at
4
the
items.
top. So that's actually not too bad. It probably is more the way to
Main
go.
landmark report search issue footer navigation landmark footer
Footer.
heading level 2.
Well,
Main landmark search
you know,
landmark
when you
issue
get to
navigation
the
landmark labels
GitHub
13 link.
issues, like it takes 30
Milestones 0
tabs
link.
to
Labels
submit
13
an
link.
issue. So it's like if you are having accessibility problems, now you got 30 tabs before
Well,
you can tell us about it,
to be
right?
fair, to GitHub, they have added some, direct keyboard shortcuts, which I think are a help to people.
Okay.
Like you can hit G and hit I, and it'll bring you to the issues. and so
Right.
on. And there's another
Right.
hotkey that I'm not remembering right now, but you can, I think, open an issue by number or something. So if you're visually if you're have a disability mobility and you are navigating by keyboard for that reason, the situation I think is a little bit better. But I don't know. But actually, you know what? I actually can't complain about GitHub. And I was just on here with Krishna, who he's been working with me on a client project, open source SIG store, and he was actually saying, he was actually appreciating how accessible GitHub is. I mean, it's a little overwhelming, but I also think it's kind of visually overwhelming. So I think it might just be an overwhelming website. It's not really,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Content
Well,
info
I
is not
mean, you
focused
say
in left.
GI, right? But that's a Gmail thing, right? And it's like, oh yeah, GitHub's just a full-blown application at this point, right?
100%. Yeah.
Homepage link GitHub. Main landmark no colon assign link.
Okay, where the hell was
Search
I?
landmark issue navigation
Search
landmark labels
landmark.
13 link. Issues search landmark search all issues edited colon PRs
Search all
colon open.
issues.
Issue navigation landmark labels 13 link.
I feel like issue navigation has to be it.
Milestones 0 link. New pull request link. 1 open link. 44 author label menu but projects milestones reviews assigning menu sort menu but issues grouping less field set more details link. 2 slash
There you
2
go.
text OK link.
Let's go to that
more
one.
details
Is
link.
this it?
Yeah.
Less field set more details by Tony Fast middle.
More details sounded like something that like GitHub would have on a like a dot 3 dots.
Ah.
That's why I was like, okay.
Well, I can explain to you what this is once we get to the demo. But there's been some structural changes to this since we met last week, and I think I've been able to. I mean, if you look at this pull request here, it's not a bad balance, right? Like it's removing a lot, but it's also adding a lot. So it's adding 574 lines and removing 508. So with some of these changes that I made, I had to have like less opinions about CSS. I was able to use more natural sort of layout stuff. So I was able to remove some things and replace some things, and add some more interactivity. So I've improved the settings configuration that we looked at last week, so we'll revisit that. I've looked at the ARIA Live activity log thing, so last week we kind of first talked about having those announcements verify an activity, right? And some other things that I've added this week that I'm kind of excited about when we go through it are ARIA describe by properties. So ARIA describe by is a secondary description that we can put on stuff. So I've got some questions when we get there. What would best describe the cell? Is it lines of code? Is it programming language? How many expressions? And is there a use for ARIA details, which is like a tertiary knob that we have that can also provide information? And then another thing, this is the most exciting thing to me, and like I know that it's super nerdy, but I was finally able to work the notebook schema into NB Convert and actually find a need for it. Like one of the things that we found when we did user testing is that novice users of the notebook didn't understand some of the terms that we used, and they needed a tutorial. So I added that tutorial. I added some aspects of that tutorial. I was able to use existing things. So I want to show you that. And then we can start to hint at, smell, just see the beginnings of interactive mode, which is something that we've always kind of talked about, right? Like if we spent enough time nurturing this base ARIA first principled representation, then we should be able to promote things into interactive mode, so we can kind of start to see what happens there. And when that happens, right, like you increase the number of tab stops on the page, and you're actually going to need some different considerations. Yeah, that's kind of the deal. And then you got the two examples right below it. And one of them's the short Lorentz notebook, and then the other one is a much longer notebook from the Space Telescope
So we got
Science
some links
Institute.
here.
Yeah.
Select reviewers form reviewer. Select assignees form assign. Select projects form project. Select milestones form mile. Select projects form projects.
Okay.
Sign into comment link. Sign up for free link. Fifth dial inactivity at Tony Fast graphic link. 600 and pull request tabs navigation. Commits 12 link. Checks to link. Files changed 12. Tony Fast 22 days ago. List with 2 items. https://auto-school.github.io/notebook. https://auto-school.github.io/.
Okay, we can do the long one. Let's do the long one. Let's go for
Oh,
it.
we did the low one.
Yeah, this is great. This
We
is
can do the
great.
first one.
This
Less fields,
Might be
set more details,
confusing
part of
if we
it.
start
List
with
with 2 items, HTTPS code. List with 5 items, notebook tutorial, link number 22 link. 2 days ago link, heading level Tony Fast link to list with 5 items, notebook tutorial, link number 22 link.
This
so
one?
do a shift tab. Shift tab.
2 days ago link, heading level 3. Tony Fast link, heading level 3.
Oh.
It's
Oh, never
going up
mind. I didn't
above,
see your
yeah.
cursor
To
up
list
there.
with 5 items,
Hit
notebook
Yeah, it
tutorial,
doesn't
link.
always kind of do the cursor is
Tab
always
one more.
sometimes a little deceptive.
List with 2
one more
items,
tab.
HTTPS
There you
colon
go.
slash
Right
slash.
there.
Yeah.
Lawrence slash execute.
Nice. Okay.
It's supposed to have the
Cool.
kind of visual thing that follows along, but I've noticed that NVDA, like for example, right now I think you're seeing it's like a ghost because it uploaded the page, but it didn't change that like box that it drew around. Do you see that? Kind of in the
Right,
middle of the
right.
page, yeah. So I don't know. NVDA is very focused on like completely blind users, so noticed that sometimes some of that detail stuff doesn't really, you know.
I mean, it's right there in the name, though, isn't it?
I mean,
Non-visual.
non-visual, you know, you can't really fault them too much, you know.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, so, all right, so let's,
Notebook main landmark list with 60 items.
what do you want to try out first? Do you want me to just poke around, or?
Well, so I can highlight a few things. So your second tab stop on the page, the settings thing, that's got some
Help one
more
link,
options
notebook
in
form run
there.
button. Help show expand and
So
show up metadata button.
I'm heading back up to it.
Edit region list with table of site header and skip to main content. Toolbar bookmark list tab button. Share this page button. Zoom colon 110 address and search bar edit have auto convert.
you're
Zoom
back at
colon
the
1
URL.
share this page button.
Yep.
Bookmark list tab button. Lawrence slash executed
There we go.
document. Link
Okay.
alt plus 1
So the
skip to main
second-
content. Settings button alt plus
One more
Settings.
tab. Yep.
Notebook main
Yep,
landmark
settings.
button for
Notebook
region
main.
tables.
Okay.
Slash
Shift
header
tab.
and landmark settings
There you
button
go.
alt plus. Dialog settings.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. So what we've got here, I've added some new things. I've implemented the updated, standards compliant ways of updating these things, or I don't know, less opinionated ways of updating these things. So last week we saw the color scheme, so that can change from light mode to dark mode, and since your screen's inverted, that's why light mode, dark mode isn't coming through in the way that we expect. I added the need for margins on the left and right side. So you can change the margins. You can change the screen reader navigation, which we talked about last week, where you can do the list and table and landmark navigation. Font size, the serifs, and line height I added this week. So you can increase the line height. And some of these things are inspired by Firefox Reader mode. You know, I basically went and added a few of the features that you typically see in Firefox Reader mode, and that's where I got the idea for synthetic speech too. So the browser actually has a native ability to make sound
Do
and say
TTS.
things,
Are you
even if
using
you're
the
not on a
audio
screen
API
reader.
or?
So this uses the synthetic speech API.
Interesting.
And it's one of these things where I think that from the video game perspective, you know, you always, in your options, you always have toggles for sound effects. And this kind of gets us to a place where it's like, oh yeah, maybe there's some sound that would enhance this experience for
That
everybody.
does kind of remind me to put on my
NVDA menu.
slightly nicer sounding voice.
Configuration pro new button alt plus N. Triggers button new list left default. E-speak. Factory default nice line sounding. Manual activate button.
Lawrence dash exit.
Okay.
I love when you're like nice sounding. It's actually labeled nice sounding.
Yeah.
So if you give a rip around and change some things real fast,
Sure.
let's
Color scheme
revisit
grouping.
that.
Margin percent spin button editable selected 5.
Margin. Let's try the margin since that's new.
0. Blank. 0. 0. Cell navigation. Margin per blank. 0
margin.
unselected.
0.
You should be able to go
can I
up and
just type
down with
this?
that.
0. 1. 0. 10.
Yep.
Margin changed.
Cool.
Margin changed.
Yep.
Actually, you know, and I often say like when I create a website, one of the things I often do first is like play with the margins because I do think margins really improve the I don't know like a certain kind of cognitive accessibility on the page if that makes sense. Like you feel like you have a little breathing room or something like that.
It's an easy way to remove pixels, right? It's basically like putting them in a vise. and they have to squish out from the top and the bottom, right? So like in a lot of ways, like the margin really helps with some cognitive overload. Absolutely.
I'd also say, I think this came up in our testing for the Notebooks for All project, but that some people find themselves scanning on the left, and to be able to kind of like shift things over or squash things a little bit more in a certain way can sometimes be helpful for people. Like if you have like a gap in your vision or something like that. So.
Oh, very good point. Very good point.
Notebook
Very
main.
good point.
Side header banner. Skip to main. Toolbar. Settings button Alt plus.
Okay.
Dialog settings. Color scheme grouping. Margin % spin button editable
So
selected 10.
margin, I'm gonna leave it on 10 because I collect 10.
Cell navigation
Cool.
grouping.
Cell navigation
List
grouping.
radio button check
so
1 of
this
7.
is where you can change. You can navigate by list. You can navigate by
Yep.
table. Navigate by
Yep.
etc.
Font
So
settings.
just give it a
Cell
change,
navigation grouping.
and like
Notebook
even if
cell
it's a back and
navigation
forth.
set to table. Notebook cell navigation set to landmark. Landmark
I'm
radio
gonna do
button check 3 of
landmark 'cause
7.
I like the landmark one, and then I like the table one too, but more for like if I was looking for something specific.
So what I love though is that you really kind of glossed over the Aria Live that was coming at you.
Yeah,
and you're just like,
honestly,
oh yeah.
it feels great. It feels great. It's
So
like
if you
using
tab down,
a native app or
if you
something
tab
like
on down to activity log, boom, boom, boom. Let's give it
Font
1,
settings
2,
grouping.
3,
Serif
4,
grouping.
5.
Line height spin button editable. Sound settings grouping synthetic speech checkbox not
Ooh.
checked.
One more.
I'm interested in that one though.
Activity log button collapsed.
Okay, activity log button. Is that just activatable?
Expanded.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
So this here, I turned this into a table now. So this is a structured thing. And it's got the time that something happened, and we can make it prettier or whatever. That's not the point right now. But then also some message that showed up. So what's fun about this one is that I'm using a details tag, and I put this table outside of the details tag. And that lets me, so the table needs to be visually exposed for you to hear it. It can't be hidden or display none. It has to be visually hidden for you to hear it. So if it's inside of a detail and it's collapsed, it won't actually come through to your assistive tech. So by putting it afterwards, I can now say details open plus table, and then not open plus table, and then display not or visually hidden at that point, right? So you kind of using that native feature, but it's like a JavaScript less approach to having like this collapsible Aria Live region for you.
So what does the log show? Kind of events does it show?
So it's whatever really programmed into the application. So right now, you can see like you changed the margins. That was the first thing you did. And then you changed the cell navigation. That was the second thing that you did. And I've got a placeholder in here for a third column that would allow you to reverse these actions, right? So one of the most accessible solutions would actually be to make everything that you do reversible, except for maybe some long-running computation or something along those lines.
Yeah, very
but
cool.
whatever can be reversed should be reversed.
And I think there's probably some kind of I don't know how it's implemented, but there's an undo feature in Jupyter Notebooks. I wonder, it'd be cool to register things and whatever. Who knows what the hell that is under the hood, but
Search tabs menu.
okay.
Dialog setting.
I'm kind of curious about your speech.
Sound settings grouping synthetic speech checkbox not checked.
I'm gonna check it and see what happens. I mean, I have
Let it
the
rip.
screen reader running.
Speech on. Checked.
Okay.
Speech on.
Ooh, so that was the other screen reader that said it. I heard it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny because I'm gonna turn off NVDA and just see what it does.
Yeah, go and change any of these values.
Okay.
Serifs removed.
Ooh.
Serifs included. Serifs removed.
So this is without the screen reader, right? It's
I know.
fun.
So my NVIDIA is, just to be clear, NVIDIA is off right now. This actually works surprisingly well. doesn't
I
it?
know. It's one line of JavaScript, bro. It surprisingly doesn't suck.
Yeah, and it's working. I really want to try. I mean, did you try this in like Firefox? Does it work in Fire? But stuff tends to work more in Firefox than anything.
This
So
where I do most of my primary testing in Firefox, so
yeah,
that's where I got it to work. So yeah, we're at a place where I think like I could do stuff where things when they receive focus, even like this, everybody gets this experience even without the screen reader.
that's pretty cool. I don't know. I
Thank
kind of
you.
almost want to go and create an audio game or something now, because this didn't used to be so easy.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you
Well,
really have
maybe
to wait
this
for
notebook.
standards to catch up to, for these things.
Right, right, right,
Or
right.
for the
Well, we
browsers
get
to
some good.
implement. Sorry.
We get some undue behavior. I'll show you that in a little bit. But I think maybe person for you, why don't we tab one time, and then hit the no shift tab, and then hit the up
Line
button.
height changed.
Maybe keep it
Line
going.
height changed. Line
Cool.
height changed. Line height
Keep it
changed.
going. There you go.
Line
Nice.
height
And now
changed.
let's shift
Line
tab
height
twice.
changed. Line height changed. Line height changed.
Oof, it's
Line
harsh.
height
It's
changed.
okay.
It's harsh. Yeah. See. Okay,
It's
it's
just
done.
what it's doing is like there's not a like on NVDA, I'm constantly pausing the speech, to stop it by hitting the control button. So you don't
Yeah.
really have that
Yes.
option with this, but that's normal. I mean, you can't, you know what I mean? Like you can't have
But
every.
it's a web content accessibility violation, right? Because like you need to be able to play and pause things on demand. So, but it's an experimental one line of code. Let's go shift tab. One,
Which let's
two, three,
turn off the
four.
speech, so I'll turn it back on NVDA, so
Okay, great.
I don't want to
Yeah.
flip it. You tell me it's off the
Uh,
screen now.
well, I think you went all the way up to the top
All right.
there.
Oh,
Great.
okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is the
Perfect.
speech?
Oh, you just passed it. You just passed it. Do shift tab. Shift tab.
That one?
One more. One more shift tab. Get rid of it and then hit enter. All right. Oops. Sorry. Go back. Hit enter. And then yeah. Space
This one.
bar. Shift tab.
I think it's just off now. I think that's,
Okay.
but we'll see. We'll find
Okay.
out.
Great. Great.
Okay.
Or you can just do a hard yeah.
I don't know. That's pretty neat,
Weird.
dude.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um. All right. Is your screen
You
reader
should
back on?
think about making the settings thing a little library, or something, or like not a lot, or just like a little GitHub, just example thing on its own. Because I think the settings widget or whatever is a pretty cool. Um, it has a lot of cool stuff. Like I've seen a lot of different implementations, but like you seem to be adding a lot of different things to it. So,
Well, the thing that's working out, Patrick, is actually the way that this is since our goal is accessibility and we've used this approach of having so many forms, like do a search for forms on the page at this point. Can you pull up that landmark view?
Lawrence slash execute. Margin change. Time.
uh, let me try to do the NVDA way. Otherwise, I won't be able to.
Find dialog. Type the text you wish to find. Edit. Lawrence find error dialog text. Quote forms. Quote not found. OK button.
I always hate this search.
Lawrence slash
I
executed
much prefer
document.
Oh, you
the
don't have
stuff in
like
the
a
browser.
Control Shift F or anything?
It works, but I
Find
always
error
find it
dialog
really
text. Quote forms.
unintuitive.
Quote not found. OK button.
Yeah,
Lawrence
it's
slash
like it's
executed.
really on. I don't know.
Find
Like,
it.
I bet I'll find it
Select
right away if I
result
do.
one of
Yeah,
one.
there it is, right there. It's like that's the.
No, no.
Forms.
All right.
Result one.
Anyway,
Result one of one.
let's just pull back for a quick sec. Let's
Lawrence
pull
Yeah,
back for. Let's go back to the top. I'm sure you got a quick way to do that.
Notebook main landmark region cell 9 link code. Out of link out of region out. Link alt plus 1 skip to main. Content info landmark link alt. Look post attendee dash zoom dash memo. OBS 27.
I always
Post.
have a hard time
Lawrence
with
slash execute.
going to the top.
There we are. We're back. Okay, great. Okay, let's take a look at some of the described by things. All right, let's go skip to main.
Settings button alt. Skip to main con.
Great. And then hit a tab. One
Notebook
tab.
main landmark list with 60 items. Cell 1 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of code.
One lines of code.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So there's some new stuff there. Let's hear it one more time.
Yeah.
Notebook list with 60 items. Cell 1 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of code.
One lines of code. See, it said one lines there.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
cool.
it's because I didn't want to write that code.
No,
I
I
just
feel
did,
you. You have to write like
you
a little
know.
parser or
But kind of,
whatever.
if we go through, right, all of them have something like this annotated right now. I haven't really done anything like I want to make this configurable, so I don't know how to.
Cell 1 grouping
Right?
the Lorentz
Yeah,
differential equations. Cell 2 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of code. Cell 3 link code. Cell 2 lines of code.
See, that is honest. I honestly think that is quite useful. Like to know how many lines of code, because this is something that you take for granted as a sighted coder, or honestly, even like that is one thing my partial vision is useful for. Is that like getting that gestalt, which is like a you see, oh, it's a big block of code, it's a small block of code, whatever. You're like, I can't read the code, but I
right,
can know if it's a lot, a little, if it's a lot of small blocks or like something, and that is actually useful information that I think people take for granted. So I think increasing the scannability of the code is kind of big. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, and like if you think about in your like VS Code editors and stuff like that, you'll see the scroll navigation has like lines of code, right? But they're visual, right? There is that gestalt to it. And like every programming language has like a different like if you were to black out every line of code, you could still tell which is some JavaScript and which is some
Or
Python.
especially
You
like
know?
Python, because Python loves its like very specific way it indents and so on. Or yeah,
Right,
there's definitely a
right.
pattern to different Java. Certain languages have big like object-oriented languages going to have these big fields, indented
Right.
fields or whatever, stuff like that.
But yeah, with this one, I was thinking like there could be some really cool descriptions that show up, like cell 3, 2 lines of code, imports IPy widgets. Cell 5 into defines W. But like, there's a lot of different ways that we can think about perusing this stuff, right? And it would also show up in your your link navigation, your section navigation. But like you could really cram a lot more information inside of there.
Yeah, I wonder. That definitely sounds useful to me. Like, to know if there's a function defined, if it's importing. Because oftentimes you either want to know what it's importing or you want to skip all of that. 'Cause you know what I mean? Because you're like, that's throat clearing. And it's useful if you're scanning code to just be able to be like, yeah, okay, that's the imports. These are some these are some helper functions. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
Stuff like
right,
that.
right, right, right. Yeah, how many outputs does the input have? Is
Cell 4 link
another
markdown.
thing we could add there. Um,
Cell 4 link markdown. Cell 11 lines of
Yeah,
code.
I really also like knowing if it's a markdown or code cell. I think that's pretty big.
Cell 5 link code. Cell 3 lines of code.
It's a code cell, 3 lines of code. And then we can
Left
go.
bracket right bracket grouping from Lorentz import solve line W equals interactive left parent W. Out of grouping left bracket right.
I would also say, something might be useful to know, like proportion of blank, like how, like, or at least an open question is, do you count blank lines of code in that? Do you want to say like,
oh
oh, three
yeah,
lines of
yeah,
code and then five
yep.
blank lines or something? You know what I
All
mean?
right, great.
It's a
So,
thought anyway. I
all
don't.
right. Do you know what? Do you know how to use access keys on Chrome on your machine? Like if an element has the access key defined.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll put access keys on here, and I
Is
don't know
that
how they're gonna work. Uh,
in the inspect?
Let me see. I'm gonna look this up for you. Access key, and Chrome. Chrome uses the Alt key. Okay, so on Windows, are you on Windows?
Yeah.
You have started screen share.
Okay, so if you hit Alt H,
Meeting chat window. Input chat text type.
Oh,
Screen sharing
Zoom
meeting control.
capturing it.
Lorentz slash execute.
Alt H.
yep.
That's not doing anything.
All right,
Let's try
never mind.
this.
Okay, all right. So just hit some
Try
tabs.
this.
Go up to those toolbars up at the
Oh,
top.
that's not doing
Lorentz
anything.
slash execute.
We can feedback to
Nice,
Zoom.
nice, nice. Bro, Chrome.
Oh, wait, hang on. What about this? Control. I think NVDA might be picking it up. That's the issue. Let me try.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. So access keys are a really bad idea. Anyway, for people not on a screen reader, they are different. But if you go up to help, bum bum bum,
There's
Current
also
menu
this,
selected
isn't there
icons
an
plus edit
inspect
view page
element? Is
source.
that what you're looking for? View source?
Get image descript new page source control plus UV
No, it's
12
okay.
1013 of
It's
13
okay.
you get it translate to
Let's
English
just
Lawrence
let's not simmer on this one too much. Let's go back up to the top, and I'm gonna need you to tab like 7 or 8 times. Uh,
screen
and
review blank. No next review mode.
I always really want to figure out what the. I always really. I don't know. It's a really unintuitive key on the far right here.
Post attendee dash zoom document.
To
Lawrence
jump
dash
to the top.
executed document. Visited link alt plus one. Settings button alt plus.
cool.
Okay.
All right. Give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs.
No, edit
7
text,
tabs.
show and hide cell help button alt plus.
There you go.
Dialog
All right.
notebook help.
Now, this is probably good in reading mode, but this actually has a definition for lines of code in it. It has definition for
That's
metadata,
cool.
cell type, what a notebook
Close button.
is, all of that other
Definitions
stuff.
link
Down the
heading.
This
bottom,
is really
it has-
comprehensive.
Well, you know what's really cool, Patrick, is I just took this from the schema. Like this is just already being we already have this. It's used for validation before we actually publish the notebooks. It says, hey, this is a notebook. And now what I did was I just took the descriptions that were in the schema and I put it in here. But the excellent thing is that everything that's in here now can be used in ARIA described by or ARIA labeled by. So I actually have a richer vocabulary of activities by improving the help. Right. So every time we add a feature, every time we add a knob or a change to it, you add it to the help. This way it actually can be used by assistive tech and it's not hidden. Right. So the definitions should all be here. And the definitions that are in here weren't necessarily written to be exposed this way, but you could see an effort going into improving the descriptions and coming out with a better schema.
Definitions list with 7 items.
Here's the
Cells link.
definitions list.
List with 4 items. Metadata. Notebook root dash level metadata.
Notebook root.
Cells. Array of cells of the current notebook. Out of list cell. List with 17 items index. The ordinal location of the cell in the notebook. Counting begins from 1. Source. Contents of the cell represented as an array of lines. Metadata. Cell dash level metadata. Cell type. There are 3 kinds of cells. List with 6 items code.
Code.
Notebook code cell. Markdown. Notebook markdown cell raw. Notebook raw beacon out of list string identifying the type of cell. Execution count. Search tabs menu button submit toolbar view site information.
So is
menu.
any of this editable at this point? Could you like redefine some of this or something if you wanted to, or?
I haven't built that system in there yet.
But you're thinking
But
about
what
it.
I-
Is that the...
Address and
Oh
search
yeah,
edit
what
autocomplete
I think
control
you
plus.
do is you make an overlay schema that does this, but like you really want it in a schema because it's super meaningful there. That stuff changes very slowly,
colon,
and
80%
it's like the document format.
I wonder if there's any surprises.
The contents
in
cell
here.
exit composite widgets that allow for arrow key. Composite widgets that allow for arrow key navigation. Lines of code in the cell, including white space. Media attachments left paren. Not inline images right paren.
Media
Stored as line bundle keys.
attachments.
Execution display or stream outputs.
Interesting. So these are things that handle things like the when you know create a visualization or something like that. Is that
Yep.
These
Yep.
widgets
So
are
things that go to standard error and standard out.
Lines of
Those
code.
are streams.
Composite widgets that allow
Things
for arrow
that
key
are
navigation.
MIME bundles or displays. And then you might
Outputs.
just have like a raw
Attachments.
execution.
yeah?
Yeah.
Dialog,
So all of this
time,
stuff
time.
I didn't write. I didn't write any of these things. All I did was put a template to their values in the schema, and my whole goal was to be able to expose that to assistive tech. And that's how we got lines of code. And I was able to give it a definition that answered your question.
That's pretty cool. You're
Thank you.
Very standards based.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's like, yeah, you can't have the audible experience unless you have the visual experience. It's sort of, yeah. So the two really kind of work together at this point. And like, I think everybody learns stuff in the notebook. That's why we love it. Nobody likes publishing shit in notebooks, but we learn a lot of stuff from it. And this helps it think about it more as a learning tool, So yeah, I'm glad you took some interest in that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing the thing that has excited me the most is that to see that the built-in voice support is there, and I do think that is a lot of help for people Like if that means it's going to be common on websites. Like a lot of people are slow to learn a screen reader when they
Yeah.
start going blind or have some other kind of issue like with reading, and that kind of those kind of often people eventually wind up there. But like in the meantime, having these kind of in between steps that people can kind of set colors on their browser or or increase the font size or do all these kind of things, kind of either gets people over a hump or it kind of like is a good on ramp for people to learn more of the hardcore tools.
Yeah. 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 I've been using the Zoom captioning feature, and it's excellent. It picks up a lot of things that I don't hear. And yeah, increasing I didn't even realize that iPhone has without the screen reader on, you can actually activate a reader mode.
Mm-hmm. It'll
Um,
read the article that you're currently on or
yeah,
whatever.
it's like two fingers swipe from the top,
Newsgoogle.com
and
slash 4IOUHL
then
equals
you
us
get
G
the
equals us at seed equals us N. Main
get the
menu.
reader. So I think it's using that speech navigator thing somewhere. Well,
I've
probably not on the
noticed a lot of
iPhone.
a trend toward like non-visual people using the text-to-speech functionality more as more of a mainstream thing, which I think is actually a
Mm,
good development because it might mean more support. Like I have a friend who's starting a master's in psychology, and I think initially was a little overwhelmed with the amount of reading that was assigned, and find considers himself a slow reader, and I was like, well, you should try some of these new like speech apps, and he is doing that, and he's using it for like half this reading or something, which is pretty cool.
well, I've been
Um,
using dictation a lot more, and it gets me to. I've been experimenting with voice control with this approach, right? Like when we wind up writing these things well and we name them well and ID them well, and they should be voice controllable, right? Why not? So we're getting there, and this like accessibility forward approach is getting me to something that I'd love to show you. Let's go back up to the top,
okay.
and we're gonna have to skip to main, settings, table of
Show and
contents, the
hide cell
first
parts button,
heading,
expand and met,
and
edit,
then
read
the
table,
tab
tab,
after
skip,
that.
to share this Zoom colon, address and search
Oop.
bar edit, view site information
All
menu
right,
bar,
you're back at the top.
search
All
log
right, tab
activity
a
on,
few
skip
times
search
to
tab,
get back into
toolbar,
the
view site
document.
info,
Yeah.
search tabs menu button,
Uh,
Lawrence slash executed docu, search tabs menu button, toolbar, view site information menu button, secure. Address and search bar edit, Zoom colon, share
sorry,
this
I went a
page,
little too
bookmark
far.
this Lawrence slash executed
Okay.
document,
Great.
link alt plus zero, skip
All
to
right,
top, site,
a few more tabs to
settings
edit
button,
mode.
alt plus. Notebook main
One
one,
more.
list with one items, the Lawrence differential equation,
Another one.
edit mode checkbox not checked.
Great.
Check.
Entering edit mode checked.
All right.
Can I
Look at
edit
that shit,
stuff?
man. Yeah, we got
Metadata
so
button.
much more stuff to
Expand and
tab
show
through
and
now,
hide cell
man.
help button,
None of
run
it,
button.
none of it
List with
works.
16 items. Cell 1 grouping the following.
Minimizing works.
In left bracket, right
That's
bracket,
the
form
best.
actions. Cell 2 link markdown.
I'm
Cell
kind
1
of
lines of
interested in
code.
seeing how this works.
In left bracket, right bracket. Cell 2 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of code. Visited.
I'm trying to enter into
System menu.
the
Lawrence. In left bracket,
enter
right
into
bracket.
focus
Cell 3 link
mode.
code. Cell 2 lines of system menu.
Okay, now.
Lawrence slash executed document. Link cell 3.
So there's not currently, you can't currently edit these, right? It hasn't switched.
Yes,
that
you
over.
can.
Oh,
In
you
one
can.
grouping,
You
in
can
one
edit.
button, in one source
You
edit
can
mode.
edit
Oh,
those
okay.
things
The
right
cell
there.
represented as an array
Yeah.
of lines, percent matplotlib inline.
Yeah.
Percent
Yeah.
matplotlib inline until.
You just can't execute.
It does. I have not. I have not wired it in the execution yet.
I mean,
So
that's
I'm just saying. I'm
that
giving
requires
you this.
a whole other bit of functionality. But this is pretty cool. I mean, honestly, if you can get this working as an idea, you know what I mean? Like wow, it really shame. That would really be like, okay, this made this prototype in X amount of time, and it's like you can't make your regular editor accessible. But I guess it's all the legacy stuff that comes attached with that makes it hard.
In one form actions group. Cell 4 link markdown. Cell 11 lines. In left bracket, right. Cell 4 link visited. System menu. Lawrence slash executed dot. In left bracket, right.
When I open that window,
Cell 5 link code.
what I'm trying to do is enter into the focus mode.
Into grouping, into source edit, multi-line
Okay.
contents of the cell represented as an array.
Cool. I don't know.
Nice. So you can expand and
Space.
collapse some
Spelling error,
things. So if you shift tab out of there
Into button expanded.
and hit enter space, I think.
Collapsed.
You
Yeah,
can
there you
collapse
go.
things.
Expanded.
Yeah, so now you can
Cool.
hit another tab, and do a collapse.
In 2 edit
And
multi-line contents of the
what's
cell
extra
represented
nice
an array of
is
lines
in
from
Chrome, when things are collapsed, you can still use Control F to find them. It's not a feature in Firefox, but in Chrome, you can actually search the hidden stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, but these
Is
are
that a
using native
details
tags.
or what's it using to
button X.
collapse?
Yep, just using details.
Collapse.
So this is where the name of this branch came from,
Gotcha.
right? Was originally I
grouping
was
up.
using field set elements,
In 2
and
grouping up
then
2 button
once I
expanded
wanted to get
execution display
this
for stream outputs.
collapsibility in there, I start the details
In 2 form
element made a
actions
lot
group.
more sense. And the
Lawrence
details
slash
element has a
executed
role
document.
group. The
Type
field set
element.
element has a role group. They're both very similar. Instead, one uses a summary and one uses a legend. So they have like a similar structure, but you also get this expansion. And you disabled edit mode, and yeah, now you
I
can
noticed
kind of
there's
see.
links here at the
Cell
beginning
5
of the
link.
cells,
Cell 4 visited link markdown. Cell 11 line.
so you can
Cell,
like
cell 6 link markdown. Cell 1 line
I
of
can
code.
move
Visited.
directly there. It's kind of cool.
Yep, yep, yep.
Cell 7 link markdown. Cell 1 line of code. Cell 8 link code. Cell 1 line of code.
And I'm just looking at the
Cell 9 link code. Cell 1 line of code.
cell 9 link cell 1 line code, and then
Content info landmark activity log. No next landmark. No next
okay,
landmark.
I think I'm in the. Am I in the list
Skip to top
mode?
link. Search tabs
I
menu.
wonder-
Toolbar. View site information menu button. Secure. Search tabs menu. Lawrence slash X. Search toolbar. Address and search bar. Zoom colon. Share this page button. Bookmark this Lawrence settings button. All. Skip to main settings button. Dialog settings. Color scheme grouping.
You're in
Margin
list
percent
mode.
spin button. Editable. Select.
List mode, yeah.
Cell navigation grouping. List radio button checked 1
Gonna
of
have to
7.
try that.
Notebook cell navigation set to table. Table radio button. Notebook cell navigation set to landmark. Landmark radio
Landmark.
button checked 3 of 7. Font settings grouping. Combo box.
Yeah.
Notebook cell navigation
Cool.
set to landmark. Notebook main landmark. Notebook form region table of contents. Region cell 1 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of code.
Cell 1 lines of
Region
code.
cell 2 link markdown. Cell 1 lines of region cell 3 link code. Cell 2 lines of code.
Nice.
Region cell 4 visited link markdown. Cell 11 lines of code. Region cell 5 link code. Cell 3 lines of code.
I don't know. This seems like a real step forward, honestly. I really like this note. Like, if these were the notebooks, that'd be a real different sort of accessibility story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there's a really nice base coat. And thank you so much for looking at all of these things. When we started, we looked at the pull request and we looked at the settings configuration. We talked about the new ARIA Live. We did the ARIA described by stuff. We looked at the glossary and the tutorial, which went over better than I thought. We even looked at synthetic speech. I'll add that to this pull request. And then we started to see the early inklings
Of
of
the editing, yeah.
yeah, and it's not far away. It's really not far away, right? Because the way these things are designed is we just have to figure out what to do with on form submission. So regardless of what kernel you want to use, if you want to use an HTML, a JavaScript, a Markdown, a Python, whatever kernel, you should be able to do that just by changing out what happens on form submission. So if it's that easy, it'll be great. It's probably not, right? Because like one of the things that happens, I started doing some early work with it, but like with Pyodide, it's all async.
Well, is it
So I don't know how to
Ajax
do.
or because it doesn't reload the page, right? Typically.
No,
Uh,
the JavaScript is concurrency based. So it's not just like you write function, it's like async function or async diff. You're writing asynchronous code to do these things. So like a challenge is making things that might run concurrently run in serial. Like usually that's not a problem, but like you don't want that to block what's happening on the browser. So like when you run asynchronous stuff, it could actually run in a place that doesn't
Well,
block
yeah, you get like
anything.
race conditions.
Yep,
And,
yep.
it's a mysterious behavior sometimes. But then
Right.
when you submit the code, it goes like, how is that part handled?
So I mean that's up to whoever, right? Like it
Right.
doesn't. The ideal situation goes to a REST API, right, where you just send it and it comes back with some Python, right? Like that's the simplest response request kind of scenario. But you could write something that doesn't have to phone anywhere. That's like an HTML kernel or a JavaScript.
But it's all just
kernel.
JavaScript. It's like some JavaScript fetch requests in the
Yeah,
background.
yeah. So you
this
don't
and
have to
that.
negotiate any request or anything, and it's all just handled when you trigger form submission, and that's kind of what is like, oh, run a cell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think one thing that would be cool is to kind of like I feel like the front end and the back end are kind of somewhat tightly coupled. I mean, they're not supposed to be, but I think they kind of are in the usual notebook. And that has made it difficult to do certain things like create like this. A few years ago, I was using a Emacs library called I think it was called EIN or something. Emacs
Mm-hmm.
notebook something. Emacs. Let's see if
New tab
I can
dash
find
Google.
it. EIN.
Unselect.
And let's segue into your interests
Google.com
and
slash
stuff
search.
at this point
Oh well,
too.
we can do. I would say that would be another good topic for another one of these demos.
Main landmark
Okay.
video slash email.
But yeah, don't worry.
GitHub.
We'll just dedicate this one to the
Java
notebook
fixes.
updates. But yeah, so this has actually been sunset.
Add
I
landmark.
think.
Global main landmark. Repository. Footer navigation. Landmark. Footer navigation. Footer heading level 2. To check whether the month is FNAC-CC-CC-Q and colon notebook dash kill dash global dash n dash
so
close dash Cattle notebooks in
go
AWS.
too farther.
For alternative M dash X package dash insert as of 2023, the IM has been sunset for a number of years, having been unable to keep up with the Python's web dash first ecosystem. Even during its heyday, IM never fully reconciled Emacs's monolithic buffer architecture to the notebook's dash cell discretization, leaving gaping functional holes that crippled undo.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what all of that means, but basically,
Brutal.
yeah, I think they had difficulty with the some of the architectural like when you're running you know Jupyter like a Jupyter kernel or whatever and doing that communication and everything could be difficult. And I also even noticed, I'm sure you've also noticed, but sometimes you'll know that the kernel sort of flops over, um, even if you're running something in a Jupyter notebook and so on. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I would say I don't know. Thinking about other like the back end maybe is also another area of interest, and maybe I don't know, maybe what you're doing is creating something completely new here. I have no idea, or it's a prototype for other
No.
people to build
No.
on.
Screenshot.
But
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
I know that's not
just
the idea, but
I mean, this is we're influenced and literate in Jupiter, right? But like this representation here isn't just Jupiter, right? It can be used to think about large language model conversation, observable notebooks, collab notebooks, right? Like different or an asynchronous kernels, or just different computational approaches, right? So I think that that's where it's at, is like you should be able to do any of those things in a standards-based way.
yeah, a modular
Um,
semantic approach to interacting with some kind of like to interacting with the
yeah,
front end to some kind of process that's happening.
yeah, and this is the base code too, right? Like I'm not trying to like I'm thinking here like the best I can give you is all the options in the world. And I can't give you too many and parallelize you, but like really like find the right, knobs and stuff to switch. But ultimately, like this is just the base paint, and then you pick the colors and you start doing that stuff yourself. But more a lot of it is that when we're bound with resources for testing, we want to be able to switch as many features as possible, and do some more interactive testing and scenario testing with people since we're on borrowed time. So this kind of sets us up for the future by having things more configurable. I don't know if people will ever use this. I just know that this reference implementation has already been valuable in guiding some implementations in Jupyter. Having a reference really helps make decisions.
Yeah, I also think I don't I mean maybe eventually we should do some strategizing about ways to get this to people's attention and stuff because I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. I mean, I really like the settings based approach. It seems to work like pretty shockingly well, considering how
Yeah.
complicated the domain is and all that kind of stuff. So like, I don't know. So I'm kind of enthused about it. So let's maybe do a little
Well,
thinking about ways to get it in front of people or like get people aware that it exists. So when they go and write an interface like this, maybe they come and take a look at it, or you know what I
well,
mean.
well, so one of the things that's really pushing this along, Patrick, is the generous use of forms. Because I don't have to write query selectors to do these things. I say document, forms, settings, color scheme, dot value, or
You
dot
just
color
change
scheme,
all the forms.
add event.
Yeah.
Yeah. and I'm working on the forms. I'm working on named elements. I'm working on things that have names and schema in other places. So, what we're really finding here is we're finding some like really good CSS variables that would be practical to expose. Yeah, it's kind of we're finding good standards and good interfaces through this. So yeah, thanks so much for exploring this and the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of thinking. I mean, I may have a baby now in the next, or and I may have a baby now in the next week or two. But like, I do want to think
So
about like
fucking
some.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool, but the some of the last mile stuff here, in terms of like, well, what would get people? Because I think a lot of this stuff, kind of like, what's cool about this is hard for people to wrap their heads around when they're not like living, breathing accessibility. They're not thinking of a screen reader. So they're not doing all this kind of stuff. So what's a like if it doesn't mean like do we hire a designer to make like a really high contrast version of this and then we hook it up to a backend and then it's like, oh, it's a prototype of a different thing. Would people be enthusiastic about that, or
Right.
does it mean writing like a journal article? I don't know. Like, that's the kind of thing we probably need to figure out. But like, I don't know. I would be excited to try to get your work here in front of people more. And because I
I
kind of
appreciate
want,
that.
I want the exported notebooks to look more like this. You know what I mean? And not, So I think that's.
I keep sharing this with people, and like I've gotten over the embarrassment of the low fineness of it because everybody kind of
Well, I
finds some
certainly don't
mis
care about that. But yeah, people are
yeah, yeah,
definitely shallow in that regard. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, I'm
yeah,
I'm in the position as someone who creates websites and stuff for people. I'm like, yeah, well, you kind of need to make it look a certain way in order to,
yeah,
pass certain reviewers and so on. And I personally like the Tim Berners-Lee style. You know what I mean? Of bright
yeah.
blue links and all that kind of stuff. I find it easy. Like when I land on a site like that, I'm like, breathe a sigh of relief. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
back on
yeah,
Craigslist. I love it.
yeah, yeah. Craigslist has always been enduring in how simple they've been.
New tab dash
Um,
Smyth and
but
Tony Fast. Google.com slash search to mainland list. Craigslist colon New York
Yeah,
jobs.
look at that. No
it's
responsive
great.
design here.
Zoom colon
Kind of is though. Look, there
175%
is
alert. Zoom
responsive
colon
design. So they did
New
that
York.
much, but I don't know. They've
General
kind of
labor.
just like whatever. Craig or whoever is really just been
Housing.
like,
Government.
I'm not,
And landmark location. Posted
and
link.
believe this
Accounting.
site. I'm
Search
betting
Craigslist edit.
this site
Community
seems
button.
pretty
For sale button.
accessible.
Gifts button.
Like kind
Zoom.
of
Yeah,
Zoom
unsurprisingly because it's just a bunch of links. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I think that's our demo for today, right?
I think that was super fun, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and best of luck to you all over the next couple weeks.
Cheers.